last summer, Jonathan Marchessault denied the Montreal Canadiens of acquiring that player, but is he now coming around to the idea of being a Montreal Canadian? We'll get into that in Rumor Roundup today on Locked On Canadiens.
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into episode 1319 of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day, every day, and for subscribing wherever you get your podcast. Doing that supports us here on the show and ensures you do not miss an episode. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. My name is Ian Boisvert, also known as @MaybeIt'sIan, and I am joined, as I always am, by the incomparable Laura Saba, also known as the Actor Stick. Laura, we just got finished watching Laval come out in the Eastern Conference Final of the Calder Cup playoffs and put up what I have determined was a stinker of a hockey game. So how are we feeling just in the immediate aftermath of that hockey game?
It was not the best. Honestly, this is how I'm honestly truly feeling. It's a game you have to learn from, but you also have to move on from. You cannot get bogged down in it because you have another game coming right up. You absolutely need to get it together, forget it, and go back to what made you so effective. Because the Canadiens, over the course of this game, I was going to say over the course of this episode, the Rocket, over the course of their game, were not consistent. They were not consistent. They did not do the things that have made them successful, and they were able to put together fits and spurts of positive play, but it was not sustained.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and we will cover that game and then quickly move on from it, just as we hope the Laval Rocket will. We'll cover that in our first segment. We have to eat a little bit of crow here. Our listeners pointed out that we skipped Kirby Dach in our season reviews, so we will somewhat defend ourselves for that decision, but also give you the full Kirby Dach season review that you are owed as listeners of this show. And then the Hat is coming back on Rumor Roundup in our third segment, as there's some rumblings that Jonathan Marchessault may be open to the idea of coming to Montreal. So we'll cover that off at the end of our show. Really quickly, tomorrow is our mailbag episode. So submit your mailbag questions whenever you can, however you want to. LockedOnCanadiens@gmail.com is a great way to reach us, but you can find us on Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky at Locked On Canadiens. So send us your questions any way you know how to, and we will get to them tomorrow after the Laval Rocket game. All right. Speaking of the Rocket, a 5-1 loss in the first game of the Eastern Conference Final against the Charlotte Checkers, a team that you can tell is an affiliate of the Florida Panthers. In every way, shape, or form, they are doing Panthers things.
And by that, do you mean they are doing extremely dirty things and getting away with it?
The getting away with it aspect of it, I am torn on, because Laval had 6 power plays in this game and did not score on all of them.
See,
any of them, for what
every
it's worth.
time, like, I have this conversation with anybody, and sometimes our listeners have done it too. They'll be like, okay, but they did get calls, or he did have hits. I'm like, okay, but think about the number of calls they deserve to get.
Yes.
And they got only 6.
And that's true for the Florida Panthers as well. The Florida Panthers, I believe, were very high up, if not the team with the most penalty kill opportunities this season in the regular season. They operate under they're going to call some of these. They're not going to call all of them, and we're going to get our pound of flesh. They were perfect, especially, I think in a game like this where Laval has shown they cannot score on the power play. And in fact, they were a -1 on the power play. They gave up a shorthanded goal to start the third period. I think they become more comfortable, that is a team like Charlotte or a team like Florida, they become more comfortable with taking those shots. Late in the game, Xavier Simoneau takes a cross-check in the back of the head, and he's on his knees in front of the net. They're calling that penalty, but then another Charlotte player comes by and gives him a butt end of his stick right into his face. And they weren't going to call that initially, but they ended up evening it out and throwing both Simoneau and that guy in the box. I believe Steves was the guy who did that, because Simoneau went after him, and then they decided, game management time, you're both going. I find that this series, especially for the Angstroms, who I want to talk about, I love this player now. That is my new guy, is Adam Engstrom. The Angstroms of the world, the Reinbachers, the Mayus, the Becks, the Jacques, the Waz to a certain extent, people who you kind of think will have a future in Montreal, you're going to have to go through Florida. This is that. This is the testing ground that you have to try to understand that, so that when you get to the NHL and maybe you're fortunate enough to get to a second round or maybe even a conference final if one of them's a wild card against a Florida Panthers team, you're not going to be surprised by what happens. I think that's what I'm trying to take out of this series, but for the most part, it was a game of opportunities. The Laval Rocket heavily outshot Charlotte. They outchanced them. Charlotte took advantage of the chances that they had. Primo was in net for this one, even though it kind of looked like in practice it was going to be Fowler. That didn't end up happening.
At this point, they're just having a little fun with us.
I think that's absolutely part of it. Now, not to say that this game is on Primo, but
it's a back-to-back.
It's a back-to-back, and if you wanted to find another reason to get Jacob Fowler into a game,
this is it.
Rocket just wrote you that empty check, and you get to do that. Like, that's what's kind of annoying. They could have really just crushed this quote unquote goalie controversy, even though it really isn't one. I thought Primo was at fault for maybe one of the goals. I think it was the second one. It just sort of beat him in a really unorthodox way. But other than Primo, like, I didn't think many players had a particularly strong night. I thought Simono's line was quite good with Kandata and RHP. I thought that Beck and Jacques were silent in this game, which is not how things went in the previous rounds.
They'll wake up. I think there's definitely, if there's two players you can count on waking up, I think it's them.
Yeah. And one player who I want to touch on, who I think was doing everything he could to will them back into this game, was Adam Engstrom. And he was doing it with his legs, which I find to be a thing the Canadiens do not have in spades right now. They have a lot of guys who will pass the puck out of trouble and pass the puck out of their zone and exit the zone and enter the zone, using that puck moving aspect of it. He was just using his legs. He was coming around the backside of the net, and I had Mike Matheson flashbacks in a good way, right? Like, those were the magic moments of Mike, not the tragic
ones. You should make
ones.
an Engstrom meter.
Yeah. He's going to, I hope one day that he inherits that, except it's far more magic than tragic.
Yes.
That's sort of I love that player. I think he's going to play NHL games next season for Montreal. Not to say that he'll start the season in Montreal, but there are always injuries. He can find his way in there, and hopefully he takes the best, the most advantage of that opportunity.
I do want to just ask a question. Do you think, like, Pascal Vincent, when he's deciding what goaltender to use, like, he uses a magic 8-ball?
No, I think at this point, honestly, I think Kent Hughes has been calling him and telling him what goalie to play. And I think
I picture him like pulling it out of a hat or like using a magic 8-ball or whatever. I know we went like alternating at first, but now this like weird pattern shift. I don't know.
Yeah, he just flips a coin, and whichever side comes. No, I think
whoever brings him his coffee first.
I think Primo made that choice a non-option with the final game of the previous round. He gets a shutout, they advance. It's an elimination game for both teams, and he gets a shutout and they move on. I don't think he was at fault in this game for most of the offense against Laval, but I just think the power play was particularly bad. Not only the fact that they didn't score, but I believe it was their second power play in the first period. They gave up 4 grade A scoring chances and did not get any. Their first power play they got, it was so bad. The first power play, they just got 2 wrist shots from the point. That was all they were able to manage. So like the power play needs to dial in. I think that starts with Mayu. He's the quarterback on that first unit. They need more out of him. I thought Waugh had some moments in this one, definitely not on the power play, but he had that one takeover shift that was the only goal of the game for Laval, an assist that he sent over to Kapanen.
That was a really good shift.
It was great. It was really nice to see Waugh just completely take over for a shift.
Yeah.
You'd like to see it more often, given that he's kind of not to say that there are overagers in the AHL, but you're kind of hoping that he's past this point of his development, and he just hasn't shown consistently that he can be. But like you said, they'll need to have short memories. They're right back at it Thursday night to play their second game at home. Then it's 3 on the road in Charlotte, and then, if necessary, the final 2 at home in Laval. All right, we'll leave game 1 of the Laval Rocket there. When we come back, it is the highly anticipated Kirby Dach season review that we somehow skipped over, and now we will be going back to when we get back on Locked On Canadiens. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Do you think the Knicks have what it takes to come back in their conference final series? Or maybe you want to parlay their Game 5 odds with the over in what has been a pretty high-scoring series? Or Tyrese Halliburton lead the Pacers to the NBA Finals? Either way, FanDuel has you covered. Are you new to FanDuel? It's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Laura, we are back. There's no hat on my head. Well, there is a hat on my head, but there's no cowboy hat yet. Rumor Roundup is coming in the third segment. We hope you'll stick around for that because I think it's going to be a really fun one. First, it's a bit of a mea culpa here on Kirby Dach.
Yes, we both have to own up to.
Yes. Listener of the show, the Zellword on YouTube pointed out several times that we missed Kirby Dach. And to which we say, yes, we did. However, this is the excuse, and then the follow-up is a little bit better of an excuse. Let's say that. The first excuse is we've been going from Hockey Reference, just going through the roster in alphabetical order, and because Dach finished the season injured, he's not on the roster. He's part of an injured section, so that's how he got skipped. But for what it's worth, we've kind of been doing a referendum on the season Kirby Dach has had since he got injured. We have literally created a segment around the fact that he did not do what he needed to do this year. So the Zellword, you are absolutely correct. We did skip Kirby Dach. We should not have done that. So here it is.
Or we should have explained it at least. We should at the very least explained it.
Well, we would have explained it had we known we skipped him. I honestly didn't even register that we didn't, because we've been talking about him every episode for weeks. So it's a procedural hiccup.
But also, like, for me, like when I kept seeing that, I kept in my head, I kept being like, oh no, I'm already acting like he's not on the team anymore. I've given up on him. I had that guilt.
No, I definitely get that. So the Zellword, thank you for keeping us honest. We appreciate our listeners who do that, especially when they do so in a very respectful way. So thank you for doing that. Laura, our tradition on this is to have a word. What is your word for the season Kirby Dach had?
Unsurprisingly, the word is going to be disappointing.
Yeah, I don't know that that's going to take much explanation on that one, but I'll give you the floor to expound on that.
There is a bit of unfairness to this. Like, we have another regular listener who keeps us honest, Danny Joe. Hey, Danny Joe. And he will always tell us, remember that the type of injury that he had is not it's not like a scratch, right? It's not a microfracture or whatever it is that Mark Stone had. It's an injury that it requires invasive surgery. It required invasive surgery. It required a long rehab. And takes a very long time to heal. Even when you are quote unquote ready to play, it might not be fully healed. And the impact of going through that also has a psychological effect on the player. So, like, thanks, Danny Joe, because we were really hard on Kirby Dach, obviously. But the fact that you kept reminding us of it, and the fact that we should keep it in mind, I feel like I needed to not necessarily explain my word as disappointing, but also just qualify it a little bit.
I think you can be disappointed in an injury in the way that you're disappointed when you get sick and have to miss a concert, right? That you can be disappointed in that respect. Doesn't mean that you're blaming, Kirby Dach for getting hurt. The word that I have is doubt, because this is the first season of the Kirby Dach experiment where there is legitimate doubt as to whether or not he can play the role they brought him in here to play. There's doubt on behalf of the fan base, which matters to a certain extent, right? It's not all important. And I think there's some doubt on the in the front office. They feel confident that Kirby Dach can pull himself out of this and can rebound from this next season. Can is not will. And that's where the doubt seeps in. We talk about the word we kept using was on-ramp, right? We kept saying that there was an on-ramp for him this season. That on-ramp never ended. It wasn't even at a point where he was just getting it going and then he got hurt. He wasn't even really doing that. And a lot of that is the nature of the injury he was recovering from. It's not, saying Kirby Dach showed up 30 pounds overweight this year, no muscle mass. He just didn't do it. Like he struggled with the rehab of this injury right up until he got hurt again.
Yeah.
That's right. It's a critical summer for this player, no?
I think so. I think absolutely. And honestly, if the Canadiens didn't tell him to do it, I would, like, if I was like one of his loved ones, I would tell him to see a sports psychologist.
Sure.
If you're not already.
I think all of these guys should, for what it's worth. All of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you're playing at the pinnacle of your sport, and trying to put together a winning team and all of that. You're trying to be part of the solution. I think you should have a regular sports psychologist that you see. Some people go to life coaches. I'm not here to criticize that. I feel like there's a specific unique aspect to being an elite athlete in a fishbowl environment that it's really important. And I hope he is. And if he's not, he should. But I will say one thing, you were talking about how like the fans have that doubt. I think as long as you're wearing a Montreal Canadiens sweater, the fans will forgive a lot, right?
Yeah.
When you see Canadiens fans turning on a player, it's either like he's not wearing the sweater anymore. As long as he's wearing the sweater, the chances come, right? Like they will forgive the player. They might not be happy, but as soon as he turns it around, there will be forgiveness. They will get behind him. You will see them cheering for that person, or you'll hear them cheering for that person at the Bell Center. It's the second you kind of indicate that you don't want to play in Montreal, if there's a snub, if there's a comment that you made about the coaching staff or the organization or your fellow Montreal Canadiens players, that's when the fans will turn on you, right? So all Kirby Dach has to do is put together a few games where it looks like he's turning it around and everybody's going to be like propping him up again.
Yeah, I think, looking at his stats from last season, it's going to be very hard for him to have a worse season. Just like even in the moments where he did look like he was doing pretty well, he wasn't getting the bounces, right? Like we were just it was becoming a thing where he would get scoring chances and they wouldn't go anywhere. He somehow ended the season with 10 goals. I don't remember many of those goals. I'll be honest. I think a couple of them were in the same game. 57 games, 10 goals, 12 assists, 22 points. Now, this is an area of his game that he needs to clean up. 40 penalty minutes. Only 6 Habs had more penalty minutes, and he only played 57 games. That's not
one
great.
of those 6 Habs, Arbor Xhekaj?
Correct. Yeah, of course. I think he was the only Hab in triple digits. Like, It's not close. He was a minus 29, which was the worst on the team. The other two that are following up right behind him are Alex Newhook and Patrick Laine, who were his line mates before he got hurt. So like that whole experiment failed. And that's not all on Kirby Dach. It's not all on Patrick Laine's knee being busted. It's not all on Alex Newhook not being able to carry that line. It was just a bad experiment that just didn't work out because it didn't happen the way that it should have.
Yeah.
Kirby Dach's entering a contract year. He's an RFA at the end of the season. We've got about a minute left here. What do you think a successful season looks like for Kirby Dach in 25-26?
Well, okay. Assuming that he plays 82 games, which I don't think he's
That's
ever
an assumption.
Let's say he plays like 75 games, right? I need to see 50 points.
That's a lot. That's a big leap for him.
Okay, but we're talking about 2C. We're talking about a number 2C on a contending team. We're not talking about a number 2C on an average team on the NHL. In the NHL, we're saying the Montreal Canadiens, their rebuild is focused on becoming a Stanley Cup contender year in and year out. And this is Kirby Dach's opportunity to grab that second line center lineup. as Jeff Gordon said, I think there's a place on him for the team. It's up to Kirby where it goes, right? So in 75 games, I know it's a lot, but if you're going to be a good second line center in this league, that's what you want. We have had players that have played 80 something, 81 or 82 games, and then we say they have like 60 something points, and then the listeners are like, no, that's not good enough for a second line center in Montreal, right? So like the expectation here is different than expectations on an average team where they're just content to make playoffs.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think especially if he is that second line center and he's playing with Ivan Demidov, like that's going to be a situation that he needs to take advantage of. I just keep going back to the Kirby Dach we saw, and I know it's like the smallest of sample sizes. The Kirby Dach that we saw in the one game against Toronto before he lost his knee in the next game, he looked dominant in that game.
Yeah,
And
but there was a preseason where he looked good as well, right?
Yep,
That
sure.
wasn't that wasn't just one game. That was the like a couple of weeks of that.
Yep. No, absolutely. So we'll see. It's going to be a big story heading into camp. It's going to be a big story all summer to see if the Canadiens try to replace him as the second line center and keep him on the team, but replace that role. All right. We are headed into our final segment here. You love it. It's Rumor Roundup. It's back. And the subject today is one Jonathan Marchessault, who's popped up in the rumor mill with Montreal linked. And we'll get into that in just a minute. All right. The hat is a mess. Man, who we need to up the hat budget, Laura. It's not enough. The Jake Evans contract worth of hat budget is not enough. All right. Rumor Roundup. It's back. We have a rumor coming to us from Frank Saravalli, who had Jonathan Marchessault on his trade board to start the offseason. I believe he was either number 4 or number 5 on that list. This is his quote about the concept of Marchessault wanting to be moved. I think he's pretty open. I think he's open to the idea. I think in a perfect world, he would love to go to the Montreal Canadiens and go home. I don't know how open they are given the term of that deal, but you could see him helping a pretty good offense already, kind of continue to take that next step. And he feels just like a true Marty St. Louis type player. Before I get into sort of the facts and figures around the player, what are your thoughts about, I guess maybe how that was worded? It doesn't really seem like, I don't know. It seems like maybe there's just a connection here with French player wants trade, maybe Montreal. Like it seems like that's the logic here. No.
The way that was worded was clearly there has not been any overtures from Montreal's end, right? That there's not been a like, he's open to being traded. Montreal's like, okay, let me call, right? Or even let me call and see if he's open to being traded. I think that is, honestly, straight up, I think that is either himself or his agent trying to drum up some interest because now you want a change of scenery for whatever reason, and you're allowed, doesn't matter why. And you're trying to drum up some interest and you're putting the Montreal name in there. And it's so easy to do this with every either Quebecois player or player who speaks French in any fashion. It just happens all the time. Montreal. And so I'm going to take this with a grain of salt. And I also think that the term, contract, and age altogether aren't attractive to Montreal at this stage in their rebuild.
Yeah, so let's head to that angle because I think that's important here. He's got 4 years left at $5.5 million per year. He's a UFA in 2029. He's 34 years old now, so that'll make him 38 when this contract has expired. He has a full no movement clause this summer. I think that might change as the deal moves on, but for right now, full no movement. First season in Nashville, only season in Nashville to this point. 21 goals, 35 assists, 56 points, which was good for second on the team behind just Philip Forsberg. The Canadiens were interested in him last summer. They are interested in him at a year less with a bit more cap hit. That was the rumor. That was what was thought to have been out there. And he decided he wanted that extra year of security in his deal, which I know there's a lot of Habs fans, especially on the Habs subreddit, who are very angry about the concept of him wanting to come to Montreal now. They feel that this is Danny Briere 2.0. They feel that, he's it's just not. It's him just trying to drum up attention in the market again. I just think that if I'm the Montreal Canadiens and it didn't work last year at the term is the same. It's still going to the same point of this player's career.
Yeah.
If it didn't make sense then, why now? Right? Like, what would make them more comfortable about that for the rest of this contract?
This reminds me of when somebody doesn't get into their university of choice, so they go do freshman year somewhere, work
Yeah.
really hard, and then try to get into that university.
Yeah.
That's exactly what this sounds like. He didn't get what he wanted, so he decided to take the long way around. And if I'm the Canadians, I don't buy it. Now, the I'm not necessarily mad about this, right? Like the subreddit is very angry. And again, remember I said like as long as you want to be a Montreal Canadian, you're wearing that sweater and you're trying,
Yeah.
Canadiens fans will have your back. But when there was a snub, and the thing is very clear, right? Like it was not a huge difference. It was 1 year. So clearly this did not fit in with the Montreal Canadiens plans. And everything that Gordon and Hughes do is very calculated. It's very clear. Like they have a step-by-step plan and they will pivot if they need to, but if they don't need to, they're not going to. So they put their feet down and they said no, not to that year. And the player has every right to go seek it elsewhere.
Right.
I just think that trying to come here now, if that's indeed what he's doing, which again we don't know, trying to come here now at the terms that you secured, like in a roundabout way, I just don't think it's going to work, is all.
So has the Canadiens' plan changed at all since these negotiations took place? I think they must have, because they made the playoffs between what happened then and now. Last time when they were having these conversations, they were looking for somebody with 2 to 3 years to come in and help out and to try to usher in a new era of this team. That's how they ended up with Laine, right? Like they had kind of, for what it's worth, run out of other options. They were probably in on a guy like Tarasenko, who another older player could add offense. I think they were probably also in on Patrick Kane to a certain extent, but those players decided to go elsewhere, as did Marchessault. I just think that maybe the plan has shifted. And also, now they have the opportunity to acquire this player at not that cap hit. Like, if Nashville really wants to get rid of this guy and they eat half of this contract for the remainder of it, so it goes from a 5.5 to they promised there wouldn't be math, 2.75. I think that's right. A $2.75 million contract per year. That's pretty good. That's less than Jake Evans.
For 4 years.
For it's the same length as the Jake Evans contract, and it's less.
Yeah.
Like that's way more palatable to me. But what the Canadiens might have to do to get that done is it worth it? Give up, maybe give up a lot. Maybe it becomes a cap dump still, because that's how Kent Hughes has just kind of worked in these operations. But where would you play him? Like, let's imagine he's in Montreal and no other roster players had to go out. Where is Jonathan Marchessault playing in this lineup?
It's pretty lockjammed, isn't it?
Yeah. I kind of think the only way it happens is if you find someone else to take Patrick Laine off your hands. And I don't know that Nashville would do that. What was that?
Is this an upgrade on Patrick Laine?
Yes, in the sense that I think you could feel way more confident playing Jonathan Marchessault at 5-on-5 in a top 6 role than you can with Patrick Laine.
But the offensive upside or the offensive talent.
Right. I mean, we've kind of already moved Laine off the top power play unit, so it's not like we would have to change anything there.
I wonder if Ivan Demidov changes. So I think it's less the fact that the Canadiens made the playoffs and more the fact that Ivan Demidov is here.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a great point. He changes a lot of the outlook for what we see, because they did get to see him come in and sort of see where he slots in certain situations. I almost wonder if there's a way that the Canadiens could move Laine to Nashville in a deal that essentially Nashville would say, okay, we're gonna get rid of this guy for 4 years. We're gonna eat this deal for just the last year, and it's got, what is he at, like $9 million on that contract? Like it's a rich contract.
It's a high 8 contract.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I don't know that that's realistic in any way, shape, or form. But like that's sort of the deal that would kind of have to happen for the Canadiens for this to make any kind of sense.
Yeah. I can't believe you're saying this about Patrick Laine. He's your guy.
He is my guy, but like I'm being realistic, right? Like it
The
seems
business
like
war.
exactly. He's like another top 6 player added to the Canadiens away from not being a Montreal Canadian. Like
Yeah.
I think I'm fairly certain that we're going into the last year of Patrick Laine in Montreal. I don't think he's going to resign. I think that experiment will have run its course. I hope he balls out this year and we get a great year of Laine and he gets to head into free agency and do all that fun stuff. But I just sort of see that fit might be running its course. Let's do yeehaws. So realism. How
Yes.
realistic is this?
I would say it's like a 2.5.
Yeah, I mean, look, I just get Pierre-Luc Dubois all over again. I know they're different players at different points in their career, but player with all the trade leverage wants to go to Montreal, ? And then he just goes to LA or something. That's probably about right, 2.5. Entertainment-wise, how fun is it to be talking about Jonathan Marchessault coming to Montreal?
Oh, it's an absolute 5, just purely based on how angry everyone is about it.
Yeah. The subreddit will be very upset every time he has even a slightly bad game.
Yeah.
I see a lot of Marty in Jonathan Marchessault.
I've always liked him, and I don't,
Yeah.
I don't hold this whole thing against him. If I
No.
had the opportunity to get what I wanted from the team that I wanted, I would try it.
Yeah,
I would
of course.
shoot my shot.
Of course, you all would. So let's not thumb our noses at it when we see it. All right, let's do our trivia and head out of here. Yesterday's question, we talked a lot about the Boston Bruins and the Canadiens potentially making a trade. So the question yesterday was a player path. The player path was Calgary, Montreal, Dallas, Boston, Nashville, Calgary. Laura texted me the answer very late last night as she finally figured it out. Laura, our guy is...
So I have to preface this by saying that Ian assured me that I definitely knew who this guy was.
Yes.
And so I kept thinking, because I thought about all these other guys who either didn't end up playing in Montreal or didn't play in, one of the teams he listed. And then I texted him. I'm like, oh my God, Ian, is it effing Steve Bégin? And the answer is Steve Bégin.
Yeah.
I will never forget what he did.
Yeah. I loved the Steve Bégin experience in Montreal. That was a good time. Yes, it was Steve Bégin. Let's move on to today's question in honor of Kirby Dach's Player Review Day. Kirby Dach is the 4th player to wear the number 77 in Montreal. Who were the first 3 players to wear that number? So the last 3 players to wear the number 77 in Montreal, excluding one Kirby Dach. If you have the answer, put it in the comments down below this video or email it to us or carrier pigeon it to us. However you want to find a way to get the answer to us, we will accept it and give you a shout out on the next episode of the show. And that's going to do it today on this episode of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day every day. We are free and available everywhere you get your podcasts. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. We are also available on Amazon Fire TV on your free Fire TV channels app. Click the Montreal Canadiens logo in the hockey section and you can watch all of our episodes there as well. You can find us everywhere, Locked On Canadiens, on Blue Sky, TikTok, Instagram, lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com for our email. Send us your mailbag questions. We will be answering them tomorrow after the Laval Rocket game, so make sure you get those in. You can find me at Maybe It's Ian. You can find Laura at The Active Stick. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we will see you guys tomorrow.